G'day Flosstube, Anna aka Moranalis back with a stitching update. It is Friday, early October, roughly the 9th. Oh, I don't have a calendar and I don't have time to look it up. This is going to be a super hurried update because my husband wants to start banging in the guest bedroom, bathroom next door and keep building. So I needed to get this update in ASAP. I'm already late. I got a million things to do. I knew if I didn't get it done today, it's going to be weeks before I get back to it. So I wanted to clear some of this stuff that I wanted to show you guys because I've actually had a couple of good finishes. I'm probably missing some of the work in progress updates, although there won't be much. Basically just the map and one super close to a finish, so pretty excited about that. Anyway, let's quit jabbering and just jump into it because I don't have time for anything else. Actually, let's start with the finishes, and I forgot my board, so apologies for that. First finish. Ta-da! Beads galore. So this is Fillipina's Maiden of something with a T. We just call it the Maiden or Macca's Mermaid. The usual subs apply for my work. All the Kreinik was swapped to Treasure Braid. All the Mill Hills were swapped to Delicas, with the exception of these scallop and star shaped treasures. They are the charted 4 ones. These larger AB crystals are just generic. We've discussed this before, I believe. You know, I buy a pack at 10. It amounts to about 25 cents a piece for those AB crystals. Where is that the AB ones? I don't know. Anyway, point is, those teardrop ones, 25 cents a piece-ish versus buying them from Mill Hill for, you know, $3 or $4 a piece. You know, you do the math. Anyway, beyond the usual subs, I have changed her skin tone to be the same as one of the other mermaids I did. This is for another one of my nieces with Korean heritage. So it's meant to be, you know, closer match for her. Oh, Pearl of the Orient Sea was the other one I changed. It's the exact same palette. This mermaid was actually charted with a darker, not dark, but darker than the typical really white pink skin tone that a lot of the Filipinas seem to be charted with. So I debated leaving it, but in the end I swapped it so that it would match the other mermaid. There is acres and acres of beads on this thing. Quite a bit of back stitching actually too. I will endeavor to shoot a close-up. Yeah, I don't know that it's going to happen, guys, given everything I got. These flower, I think they call those marguerite beads, are again just a generic equivalent of whatever Mill Hill was charted. Oh, the other thing is, when the beads are charted for these, often there's this, there's usually the 11s, which is the small beads, the 6 and the 8s in the charted work. I have swapped both the 6 and the 8s for essentially which would be the smaller of the two, which would be the 8, I think. I think that's how it works. This particular pattern, you probably could have gotten away with leaving the 6s because like that white bead should have been a 6 and then we had to decrease the size to the 8s and then the 11s. And that would have looked quite nicely. In other charts I've run into massive issues with getting the beads to fit, hence the reason I stick to the smaller beads, just to make my life a little bit easier. But I think in this chart, you could have gotten away with keeping those 6s. And then way more beads at the tail. So I didn't well, I don't keep track of how long any of this takes me to do. But the beading took quite a while on this one, just because there are so many beads. The fabric is, I'll show you again. Fabric is hand dyed myself, 28 count cashel. That's pretty standard for all my chatelaines and Fillippinas. Anything with this kind of quantity of beads tends to be 28 count cashel. The other finish, not quite so big and impressive, but still finished. This was an old Mania start. 2 years ago? Oh, 18 months. This is a Sandy Orton Paradise Floral sampler. Lot of back stitching in this, like all of that. That took me forever to do. In fact, I think the last time you saw it, I was still trying to finish in the cross stitches along the top. So this one's had a fair bit of work since you've last seen it. I had started the back stitching, but it's obviously it's all done now because it's a finish. All that over one, I actually, well, it was charted as over one. I did it 10 stitch, 2 over 1, 10 stitch, just so that I was only doubling my stitches, not quadrupling. I really like the way those satin stitches ended up looking in that background. Again, took quite a while to do. You know, it's given that there's satin stitches that you look at them and you think, oh, that's easy, that should be fast. But yeah, quite time consuming. I did mine on a smaller count. I think this is 32. I don't know. I'd have to count. I don't know. I did it on a smaller count than was charted. Originally, a lot of this was charted to be 3 strands. I dropped it to 2. For most things, obviously it's 2 over 1 half stitch there. Basically I'd forgotten I'd done that. I just, by default, I stitched 2 strands on just about everything. But when I read the chart, that one said 3 strands. And I'm like, oh yeah, satin stitches, 3 strands. That makes sense, a bit fuller, whatever. Completely forgetting that this chart had also charted the regular cross stitches at 3 strands, and I deliberately dropped them. So these are actually really puffy. By the time I realized, yeah, I was not taking it out, not going to happen. I'm not unhappy with it. It was quite tight to fit it in. I think you could have gotten away with 2 strands just fine. But yeah, it is what it is. Like I said, I was halfway through before I realized, I'm like, I'm not changing that now. Not going to happen. Oh, and that same applies to these diamonds. I actually kind of wish I had only used 2 strands on the diamonds. They're really fat, but you know, again, I'm not that worried about it. So yeah, all the bottom, the beads, there are very few beads in this. Focus, you seem a bit blurry. There's beads through those stitches at the bottom, those diamonds at the bottom. It called for a bronze mill hill. I just went to my stash and pulled out anything that looked vaguely bronze and called it good. I basically just picked something that looked good against the threads, didn't even really look at what was called for or try and do any conversion. I just grabbed something. As we discussed, I have no idea what the count of this fabric is, but it's obviously a linen of some count. It would have just been a scrap of the right size when I was working on it. I want to say it's a 36 or a 32. It's definitely not a 28. The other one, not finished, but we are so close to starting the beading, is Bellatrix. So I don't know that she's had a heap of progress since you last saw her, but I have done, like, I added in the candles and did their back stitching. I've done the back stitching on the book. I'm basically down to trying to just finish up mostly back stitching so that I can start beading, although I wouldn't doubt that I find little bits of cross stitching I missed during that process. I vaguely think there's more half stitches over here I need to do, but I haven't checked that yet. I still need to back stitch her gown. I do believe all the metallics in her gown are done, and all the garlands that float around and all the back stitch in the garlands, I believe that's all done. Oh, the other thing I did do, each of these corner embellishments should now be done. I know I did those in the last couple of nights, so there was back stitch and metallic threads and stuff to go in there. You can see the bits of back stitching through the garland. I think that was mostly done. I wouldn't be, see how we've got, you can't really see anything more than the shine, but there's bits of metallic. I think that'll be ropes of beads and stuff, but I got to make sure I've got all those bits of metallic back stitch in there before I go adding those beads. The scepter is all beads, so nothing to do there. That big gap is beads, I believe. A lot of beads through her dress. So goal with this one is basically get this beading started. Obviously she's not going to be ready for Halloween, which I only think I started her in April, so that would have been pretty impressive to have her done by Halloween. But she should be floating around for next year's Halloween. Yeah, so pretty pleased to have basically 2 finishes and 1 very close to finished. I just need to do that beading. But again, like the mermaid, I'm actually expecting the beading to take me several weeks of dedicated effort to get through all of that. So yeah, that's it for big, impressive, almost finishes and finishes. The average mundane work that I've been doing is just on, hold on, take that needle out so I don't lose it, flicking things around. I've been working on the world map, and I will have to insert a picture of what this looks like before I forget. This is done on a 25 count even weave, 2/1 10 stitch. And honestly, I didn't look up the video, so I have no idea where I was at when last you saw it, but I vaguely think I might have still been working on King Tut's face, maybe. We shall see. Anyway, I finished. This page line runs roughly there. Finished up that and then started in these top pages, and I'm working on the 3rd page across. I think when I finish this 3rd page across, I will then come back down to the 2nd row and do those 3 pages. I debated going 1 more over, but there's just a gobload of fabric behind on the back side, and I just don't want to fight it. So currently working, you can see the coast of California there in a bunch of map area. Because of I've changed the way I'm stitching this. I was doing strict 10 by 10 blocks when I was working off a paper pattern. And that meant I had, particularly in high confetti areas, a lot of parked threads. So basically, some of these colors are duplicated for every 10 by 10 column. Makes a lot of duplicated threads, a lot of a mess. My only goal at the moment is trying to get rid of some of those threads and cut them off or sew them in or something, so it's a bit easier to see what I'm doing. Now that I am using Pattern Keeper, I'm much more comfortable just kind of going where the color takes me rather than sticking to the 10 by 10 blocks. So, yeah, I don't know, you can kind of see gaps. So it's mostly filled in up here. As I kind of, it's been time just pushing colors out, and then I will go back and systematically fill in one diagonal at a time and make sure there's nothing missed in those diagonals. And then once I kind of catch up to where the mess is, I'll push it diagonally out again, so that I can see what I'm doing. And I just kind of keep working that way. And at the moment, I'm just trying to cull threads, get rid of something so I can see what I'm doing. But anyway, you can see by the time these 2 pages, by the time I got down to the bottom of them, you know, I far less threads for 2 pages than I have just 1 page. And I've already culled that a lot. Yeah, so it's nice having far less parked threads. In fact, I think there's 2 pages over here, and I had to braid both pages together because there simply wasn't enough parked threads to braid the pages individually. So yeah, that's cool. I keep looking at those round plastic bobbins. I keep meaning to get some, but I haven't ordered any yet. These metallic hair clips, you know, they're cheap. I can get them at the grocery store. They're great from that perspective, but they are a bit rough on threads, and occasionally I will realize I pulled too tight on some of those threads, and the metal has basically sheared the thread off, and I'm left with this random little stubby bit that I'm trying to sew in because, you know, the rest of the thread got cut off and is long gone. So that's kind of a pain, and one day I'll try and swap those to those other bobbins because I think that'd be better. I think the whole braiding things, you can see it obviously leaves a kink in the thread. It doesn't bother me too much, but it does make them tangle a bit more. So again, I'm wondering whether those bobbins wouldn't be a bit of a nicer way to store it, just so that it wasn't so prone to tangling after you took it out again. So as far as the estimated completion for this one, we are currently sitting at 13.6%, I think, which is ahead of my 20-year schedule. Estimated completion, I updated this morning, is currently end of November 2036. So that's pretty impressive. I have been, for the last several weeks, trying to be very deliberately keeping to a minimum of about 115 stitches per day, which is the current average since I started this project, which would get me finished at that 2036 mark. It doesn't take much extra effort. Like if I have a weekend day and I actually stitch like 500 stitches, because there's so much stitching to go and stuff, that's enough of a change to the numbers to actually drop the estimated completion date quite substantially. So I'm basically just trying to exceed that 115, slowly bringing it down. Not really desperate to finish it by that point, but you know, it's a goal. Bring that number down. How far can I bring it down? So it is what it is. I'm quite enjoying working on this at the moment. It's my primary get home after work, have 0 brain cells left, just need something to keep needle up, needle down, sort of. And so I will pull out this and work on it. Often by that point, you know, things like beading are beyond me. I am going to have to do something a bit about Bellatrix. I've taken her in every day to the office this week, figuring I will stitch on my lunch hour. I will get those beads started. And guess what? As per usual, haven't freaking looked at her because things are chaos. So if anybody has any great suggestions how to make yourself walk away when there's so many things to do, like I know I should. I know I need to take a break. And yet to actually stand up and walk away, even to go get a coffee, is just such a battle. Anyway, sidetrack. So I'm going to keep working on that for the last for the next while. I did get a bit of haul from 123Stitch in the last couple of weeks. So I have bought several of these Christmas Village Mill Hill things. So this is the bookseller, the toy shop, and the general store. I did try to get the needlework shop, but it was out of stock, so have to do that another time. My intention is to do these individually, not on the perforated paper. I will do them on linen or something. I will mount them on little bits of foam core. And then I have some shadow box type things from the craft store that I will basically just paint and make sort of a display, with the idea being that, you know, at Christmas time I can put the foam core inserts for the Christmas Village in there, you know, and at Halloween time I can put Halloween ones in, you know, and kind of use it as a seasonal swap pieces in and out of these shadow box things, so it won't be permanently affixed. Not a high priority project. They're basically going in the cupboard for one day when I feel so inclined, because, yeah, not a high priority, and we will get there when we get there. Random other things. I have a copper water lilies. I vaguely think this is for tinctorium. I was running out of one of the colors. I need to pull out tinctorium. I haven't worked on my chatelaines in ages. But tomorrow on Virtual Stitchers, I believe there's a couple of people starting new chatelaines. So I'm not starting a new one, but I said I would come and bring tinctorium and stitch along with them while they started one. And I will try and finish one. Not quite anywhere near finishing, but, you know, working towards it. Anyway, so I think that's what that's for. The other one I got was a couple of treasure braids. Yeah, so a couple of glow in dark treasure braids. One of these is for some Halloween ornaments, and I think it's also called, a glow in the dark was called for in the Halloween Afghan pattern I bought. So I've got 2 cards so that I got plenty to go around, because if I end up using it in that Afghan, it'll, you know, it'll take quite a bit, even doing it in a smaller one, I think. So that's those. I've never stitched with a glow in the dark treasure braid. I'm hoping it's no worse than the other treasure braids. We shall see. I do believe this one is for the Greta Goldblum Bella Fillipina, so need to confirm and put that with her. After I start Bellatrix, I may or may not start that Greta Goldblum one, just because it's always nice to have a Halloween piece on the go. But I also have a Halloween piece my daughter got me off Etsy that I may try and slot in there first. Should be a relatively small, simple stitch, so we will see. The big thing that came in with that order, though, was the next mermaid. Mermaid of the Cursed Sea. This is for my eldest daughter, who loves her goth, loves her attitude, and so this mermaid is very fitting for her. I think it will do it more or less as charted. I don't actually like that fabric it's done on, but she does. So I think I'm basically going to do it. I'm going to buy the called for fabric, plus a couple of others. And we will look to do it pretty much as called for, minus the Delica and treasure braid swaps we always do. I don't know what to think about this one. This is not a mermaid that I would have picked if I was, you know, stitching for my own amusement. So I'm a bit concerned that I'm not actually going to enjoy it much, and it's going to be a job. And at the same time, it's really perfect for her. So Gotta suck it up and do these things sometimes. We shall see. So expect that to be a start. To be quite honest, it's not going to get started till the new year. I probably won't even order the fabric from the US till closer to December, and then, you know, however long it takes to get here. So maybe in the first quarter of next year we'll actually start it. I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes. So I think that's about it for me. I will try and be back in roughly a month. I can foresee this chaos continuing. So if I'm not back till Christmas, I'll see you at Christmas. I don't know, guys. I'll be back when I can, okay? Talk to you later. Enjoy your stitching. Thanks for visiting. I feel like I've forgotten things, but it is what it is. I will see you next time. All right? See ya.